Hello, and welcome to this week's edition of Wealth After Work, the show that's dedicated to bringing you in and through your retirement. I'm your host, Kristen Oakley, and I'm joined in the studio by Josiah Grauso. He is the Vice President and Senior Investment Advisor, and we have Senior Investment Advisor Taylor Munoz. We're so glad you're joining us today. The title of today's show is Market Volatility and Your Retirement Date. Are you prepared to navigate through whatever the markets may or may not be doing right when you're planning to retire? That's what we're going to talk about today. But first up, Josiah and Taylor, I almost stumbled. I was about to introduce your father, Ralph, who's not here right now, but so glad to be here with both of you. How are you this week?
We're doing great. Yeah, always great to be with you.
Well,
excited to be here and excited to talk about another jam-packed full of information show.
Yeah, well, this show is so critical. I think especially in light of recent market volatility, a lot of folks, it makes people really nervous, especially as you're approaching and nearing retirement. It is so critical to make sure that you are properly prepared to handle whatever the markets may or may not be doing right when you're planning to retire. We have no control over that, right? The markets only do one of two things. That goes up, they go down, and it can be so problematic if you were to take a huge hit right when you're planning to retire. So this important topic in today's show was really inspired by a recent conversation that you all had with a couple who came in to meet with you and the team of ASC Financial Group. So can you please share that story with our viewers?
Yeah, sure, Kristen. So we have a couple that came in to see us, John and Danielle. They're from the Bethlehem area in the Lehigh Valley. And John is a school bus driver, and he had a goal of being fully retired within 2 years. So we knew we had a 2-year window.
Right.
And we always lead folks through a process where we evaluate where they're at currently and where they could be. And we want to establish a baseline for how they're currently approaching their retirement strategies. So they came in there, he's well within what we call the retirement red zone, right? It's never too early to start planning and repositioning for what it means to be retired as we start to pay ourselves a paycheck.
And that red zone was within that 5 to 10 year window, right?
Yes.
Prior to
5 to 10 years before you look to retire is what we call the retirement red zone.
Right.
And so we know he was about 2 years out, and he and his wife had done a great job accumulating and saving in their IRAs as well as a 401k. And while they had done well to accumulate, we needed to really evaluate where they were at from a risk perspective and whether they were maximizing income. Our focus is always on maximizing income and reducing risk. And while in our early years of working, accumulation is great, we want to grow our nest egg. As we pivot towards retirement and we now are paying ourselves a paycheck when we're no longer working, it's important to start pivoting towards income maximization, repositioning in that way. So we went through this process with them, talked about the importance of taking what they'd accumulated and converting that into an income stream. We did a risk analysis and found that really with that increased, that aggressive growth, there was also the potential for more loss. And so we talked about what it meant to pivot towards income. And so we first began by looking at their budget and establishing what their needs are in retirement. I know in some past segments we've talked about the concept of paychecks and playchecks, right? So the paycheck is your essential needs each month. And so we established what that is. Look, I go to retire, what do I need to hit each month as my baseline? And then from there is our playcheck, and it's what do we have beyond just what we need to do the things that we've always dreamt about doing in retirement, fund our dreams, fund the experiences that we want to do. And we worked to establish as much guaranteed income for them as possible to cover those basic needs, right? Those month-to-month needs. So for them, they had Social Security, a small pension, and then with the gap that existed after that for the base needs, we looked at using a fixed indexed annuity to kind of help bridge that gap with some more guaranteed income.
Right, I was going to say to provide a little bit more of that guaranteed income.
Yeah, exactly.
Great plan.
And that's so critical because fewer and fewer folks are retiring now with substantial pensions. And so planning for income is that much more important. And then with what remained, once those basics were covered, we wanted to reposition the rest of their portfolio in such a way that we're maximizing interest and dividends, the income-producing assets in their plan, so that they don't have to erode their principal or spend down their principal, cannibalize principal, all words that we use interchangeably, and that they could have that predictability and certainty in retirement and be less reliant on the ups and downs of the market. And so that's what we worked with them to do, and it gave them the ability to know that we can now retire with confidence. We're not subject to the volatility in the market.
Thank you for sharing the details of that, and how smart of them to say we're 2 years out and we want to get in front of this, because the more time you have to work with, the easier it's going to be to build a plan to help people reach those goals by their desired retirement date and to have that confidence. And, you know, I think a lot of folks watching can probably relate to that story of maybe you have a retirement date in mind, or you're thinking, or you're wondering, hey, can I go ahead and retire? And I think it's important for folks to understand what stage they're in that process, right? And having a successful retirement strategy means you need to understand the different stages of that preparation. So just to put everybody on the same page, do you mind sharing a little bit more in depth about those stages?
Yeah, so whether you call them stages or phases, I mean, our money goes through these three distinct stages. Okay, that first stage is the accumulation phase or stage. This is the stage of while we're working, we're paying into our retirement accounts, we could really afford to take a little bit more growth or a little bit more aggressive growth that we say. Why? Because we don't need that money for 20, 25, 30 years or so.
Right.
Okay, so that's the accumulation phase, the growth phase that we have. And then we hit, what did you call it, Taylor, right? The retirement red zone. This is that 5 to 10 years before retirement, okay? And that's where we start to enter into this preservation phase, okay? See, John and Danielle, they amassed, they saved, they had that growth, that they had all this money. And now they're saying, okay, you know what? I'm getting close to retirement. I don't want to lose anything based on a market downturn. And so we start to enter in this preservation phase so that we can keep this hard-earned money that we've got, okay? We try to help avoid maybe a 20, 30, 40% drop down in the market that really could be devastating to an overall retirement plan. And then we enter into this third phase. This is the distribution phase. Yes. This is now all of our hard-earned work and our money that we've saved, we now get to reap the benefits because it starts to pay us now. It starts to pay us back. And that's something we want to take a look at, is we want to see kind of where the challenge is some of these guaranteed streams of income. Social Security, or we mentioned pensions. Less and less people are getting pensions today. In fact, only 15% in the private workforce still have pensions. Little bit higher in the public sector, which is about 19 or 20%. But this is why it is absolutely imperative that we have a sustainable, reliable income stream that we can count on each and every year, that doesn't depend on that market going up or down that we have. And you see, without having an understanding of these phases, the number one mistake we see most retirees or soon-to-be retirees make is that they have the same plan during retirement that they did for retirement. Okay? And so folks, if you're at home, if you're not sure what phase you're in, you're not sure if you have enough money that you're gonna outlive your retirement, if you're not sure of the risks that you're taking inside of your portfolio, I'm gonna encourage you to pick up the phone, give us a call at the number below. Speak with a member of the ASC financial team. Let's sit down together. Let's talk about what your dreams are, your goals are, so that we can make sure you're in the proper plan for your retirement years.
So well said. Josiah, Taylor, thank you so much. I know we've got a lot more to get to today, but if this is resonating with you, if you would like to have some help looking at your situation, understanding what phase you're in and what steps you can be taking even now to best prepare yourself for your retirement date, we encourage you to reach out and schedule your time to come in and receive your very own complimentary retirement income analysis from the team of ASC Financial Group. You can do so by calling 844-918-4867, or if you'd rather connect online, simply scan that QR code that you see there in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, and that will get you connected as well. When we come back, do you know how your investments are currently being managed? We're going to talk through some important things you need to understand about asset allocation and what that could mean for you right after this.
I started the business back in 2005 as a legacy for my family. And I'm blessed to have two of my sons working with me.
ASC Financial Group, it's a family-run firm where we are focused on income, not just growth.
Many people can't say that they're able to work with not only their father, but their mentor and their best friend.
My main objective when I meet with someone is building a relationship, building trust.
All of the advisors and the staff, we're all listeners. It's not about telling people that come through the door what concerns them. It's about listening to them and really vetting what their goals and dreams are. We want our clients to feel like family, just like we are family within the practice.
And that's what we want to provide for our clients.
Welcome back to Wealth After Work. I'm Kristen Oakley here with both Josiah and Taylor from ASC Financial Group. We're so glad you're joining us today. If you're just tuning in, we are having a very important conversation all about market volatility and your retirement date. And you guys did such a great job earlier explaining the 3 different phases of the retirement planning process that help folks understand how their investments might need to change based on what stage you might be in. And you alluded to this, asset allocation, right? Understanding where your money is, how it's being managed, invested, and how that needs to change according to what phase you're in is so crucial. I think a lot of folks are very familiar with what's known as the buy and hold strategy because that works predominantly during the accumulation phase. But can you first define what that strategy is and why it can be problematic for someone to continue with the buy and hold strategy as they enter that retirement red zone?
Yeah, so Chris, that's a great question. When you talk about that buy and hold strategy, really that is for that first phase, the accumulation phase that we have, okay? And the purpose of that is, we're gonna have volatility of the market. It's gonna go up, it's gonna go down that we see. We don't wanna overly panic and sell too soon or buy too early that we have here. So we're able to defer that out, okay? But if I'm now in retirement, okay, and I need to sell shares of principal in order to get that retirement income, and the market is down, okay, that buy and hold strategy may not be good for me.
Because you're locking in that loss.
Correct. And we're now taking that money out.
Yep.
So we now don't have that same amount of money when we're starting to recover.
Correct.
And
Yep.
even if I've got this great pension or Social Security out there, and I don't need that money at all, the problem is when you're 73, we have a required minimum distribution. And so now the government is telling me I'm forced to sell that money. I'm forced to sell shares to have myself paid out of that money. And so that's why it's important to understand that buy and hold strategy may not be okay while we're in our retirement. And oftentimes as I sit down with somebody and they're in that retirement red zone here, and they have a lot of their portfolio in this aggressive growth position, we've got to really pivot and talk to that person about why income generation is important, because this is what we are going to be living off of for the rest of our life.
Yep.
Do we want predictability, reliability, a certainty in our retirement accounts that we've got here? And so that makes me think of a couple of our clients that we've got. Karen and Bill.
Okay.
They're from Middle Smithfield, and they work over at Shawnee Ski Resort, avid skiers, and I related to them really well because I enjoy some skiing that I've got as well. And so when I sat down with Bill and Karen here, we sat down in 2018. We took a look at where they were, and they were in a very aggressive position, okay? And their goal was they wanted to retire in 3 years, okay, in 2021. And so we talked about, maybe it makes sense to start preserving what we have.
Right.
And what happened in 2020, especially early 2020, when we had COVID that happened, and some people, they were down 25%, 30%, if not more.
Right.
And I remember getting this phone call from Bill and Karen, and they were petrified, and they were going, Josiah, oh my gosh, how much did we lose inside of our retirement accounts? And you know, Kristen, I was able to tell them with a smile, you lost very little, especially in comparison with everything else that we're going over, why we employed our safe money strategies. And so what that did is we talked about that they were still right on track, that they were able to retire. And Bill talked, he did wind up retiring at the end of 2020. And when he came in to now sign that distribution document to start receiving that money, he said, Josiah was a little bit skeptical at first, but I'm so glad I listened because I have just that peace of mind knowing that my retirement plan is solid and I have this income stream that I can't outlive.
Wow, how good of them to be planning ahead and to come to you when they did, right before that black swan event, which those things can happen at any point, and that can be devastating. I think of how many folks were blindsided by 2008 and how their, people say their 401ks went to 201ks. How heartbreaking when you've accumulated and saved that money, it's all at risk, and then an event like that happens and you're subject to losing most of that. So, okay, the buy and hold strategy doesn't work when you get to that preservation phase. How should someone's investments be managed instead?
Sure. So we talk at a broad level about the concept of total return, right? If I ask somebody, I think a lot of folks, when they say growth, they actually mean I want a return on my money.
Yes, return on investment, right?
Correct.
Yep.
And a return comes from two places. It comes from growth, which, as we've seen, especially in recent times, can also be loss, right? The market goes up, the market goes down. That's growth. Or it can come from income. And when we say income broadly, there's a lot of things in what we call the universe of the I, income. But what we're really talking about right now is interest and dividends, reliable, more predictable income streams that come from our investments. So we, at a broad level, in terms of how we should be positioning as we prepare for retirement, we want to start making a pivot. Not that growth's bad completely, but we want to start becoming more reliant on the income generating assets that give us that predictability and certainty as we approach our retirement years. We have a big emphasis on education, and we do a lot of seminars with folks throughout the region. And 9 times out of 10, maybe even 10 times out of 10, when we ask a room, we say, hey, by a show of hands, what is your main goal or priority in retirement? Almost everyone says income. We need income.
Right.
But almost everybody that comes to see us is positioned still for growth and accumulation. And so it's important to begin making that pivot. And the way that we do that, we do for folks what's called a retirement income analysis, where we look at 4 key areas of how you're positioned for retirement, and we consolidate and simplify things onto one page. We look at what's the risk that you're taking? How much am I exposed in the market when the next downturn occurs? And it's not if, it's when the next downturn occurs. Every high is accompanied by a low, historically.
Yes.
Then we look at what are the tax implications of our money. Many folks' life savings are in tax-deferred accounts, right? Those accounts, they've grown over time, but they're tax-deferred, meaning eventually they're going to have to pay a tax when they pull those monies out. So what's the tax implications of our money? That's the second area we look at. Third, what fees are we paying? And lastly, and very importantly, are we maximizing income? Pivoting from growth and maximizing income. So that's what we offer to folks. That's the process that we go through. We want to establish a baseline for where you're at, and we want to be able to see where can we optimize in 2 areas: maximize income, reduce risk. And we say that kind of till we're blue in the face. That's our but we are unapologetically income first advisors. And there's some advisors just aren't equipped with that know-how to take, and what we see more and more often is folks come to us and they say, hey, I have this 401k, but I'm petrified to touch it. I don't know how much to pull out. I don't know if this is an appropriate amount.
Right.
And they need that guidance, and they need a fiduciary advisor working with them to say, this is how we generate income from this asset.
Wow. Yeah.
So that's what we offer for folks. And really, if you're watching today and you're not sure how you're positioned, you don't know how to take income from your retirement accounts, you've done a great job growing your asset, but you're also you're also concerned about loss. You need to pick up the phone and give us a call. Call the number on the screen, scan the QR code. We want to take you through this complimentary, no obligation process that we do for everyone, our retirement income analysis, so that we can give you that baseline and show you how you can begin optimizing your retirement income picture.
So well said. Taylor, thank you. Josiah, thank you. To our viewers at home, that number to call to schedule your time to come in and receive your complimentary retirement income analysis is there for you on the bottom of your screen, 844-918-4867. Or again, you can also connect online by scanning that QR code, and that will get you connected as well. We'll be back with more right after this.
The work never seems to end until the day it finally does. After nearly a lifetime on the job, you should be rewarded for all the time you spent working. Whether that's crossing off items on your bucket list, learning a new passion, or rekindling the love of an old one. After all, life isn't over when you stop working. It's the start of an all-new chapter. The one where you're the writer and you get to choose how your story will go. A way to achieve that is by having a clear financial plan to sustain your golden years. The biggest fear most retirees have is if they'll have enough money to maintain the lifestyle they've always enjoyed. Having a plan to help protect you against the curveballs life often throws will help to maintain your lifestyle. Call today to get your free written financial plan so you may live every day to the fullest and enjoy the retirement of your dreams.
Welcome back to Wealth After Work. I'm Kristen Oakley here with both Josiah and Taylor from ASC Financial Group. We've been talking today all about market volatility and your retirement date, how you can best be prepared to navigate whatever the markets may or may not be doing right at that critical time when you're planning to retire. And it's interesting, you were talking about the different phases and how a lot of times folks haven't ever adjusted how much risk they're currently taking. When folks come in and meet with you for the first time, how often are they shocked? How often are they, just blown away? Maybe they think they're invested more conservatively, but you're able to uncover, guess what? There's a misalignment here between what you think and how you think you're invested and what's actually going on.
Yeah, and I think, Kristen, you hit the word that you just said, misalignment, and that's something that we really work hard to do, is align someone's risk tolerance, how they wish or hope to be invested, with how they're actually invested, with the reality of how they're positioned.
Right.
And I think we do see that most folks aren't aware of how they're invested. We do a stress test as part of our retirement income analysis, where we see how you're positioned today. What would that look like if you were in the next market downturn? And we particularly measure it against what would happen if you were positioned this way in the '08 crisis, right? How much could you stand to lose in a market crash?
Right.
And what we find is, again, most folks are very much invested for accumulation and growth, and with that is coming a much higher level of risk. A common issue that we see, again, is that misalignment between someone saying, well, I don't really want to lose much at all, but then they're very much positioned for loss.
Yes.
We had a couple come into us. They live in Belvedere, New Jersey. They're clients of ours. When they first came to us and the husband was approaching retirement, he said, look, I'm very risk averse. I don't want to lose more than 10% of what I have invested.
Okay.
And so we did this risk assessment with them, and we use a software that just looks very neutrally at how you're positioned today and what would happen in the next downturn. And that analysis showed that this gentleman would lose, he said, I don't want to lose more than 10%, but it showed that he would lose 42% of his portfolio if he was invested that same way in the '08 crisis.
Talk about a misalignment, right?
Correct.
So he only wanted to lose at risk 10% and 42% was at risk.
Yeah,
Wow.
exactly.
Yeah.
And what we find is a lot of folks have a case of FOMO, right? Fear of missing out. When you're used to accumulating for retirement and this idea of getting these maximum returns in the market, it's hard sometimes to make that shift towards a retirement mentality.
Yep.
Where we just say, is at what point do you need to take some risk off the table? If I go into a casino and I put all my money on red 30 and I spin the roulette wheel and I double my money, that's essentially where you're at when you've entered retirement. You have won the game. You have this nest egg that you've accumulated. At what point is it time to take those chips off the table and preserve what you have and begin taking income? And so that's really what we are helping lead folks through, is this process of pivoting from growth and accumulation to what Josiah talked about in terms of income and distribution, paying ourselves a paycheck. And again, we don't want to get folks just to retirement. We need to get through retirement.
Yes.
And that's why it's so important to begin pivoting towards an income focus.
Absolutely. And you know, as you were talking, I was just reminded of what an emotional and psychological transition is, right? Like this is for folks to go from that accumulation saving, chasing the huge gains, because now you're at a point where the huge gains won't help you as much as the large loss could absolutely devastate you.
Yeah, absolutely. And so really, Kristen, what we're taking a look at here is really talking about an effective asset allocation, okay? Traditionally, the older we get, the more conservative we should be, okay? And that generally lines up with the risk tolerance of many people we sit down with. And you know, at the heart of that asset allocation is that it's designed to say, I'm gonna take a portion of my money that says, I don't want to risk losing that money. I wanna be able to protect it. And it's really understanding at the heart of it, you know, what is the purpose of each of our accounts here? You know, we don't want to take it all off the table. We still want to make sure we have some that is going to grow, but we also want to make sure we're generating that income, both for reliability and stability for here. And so really, when we take a look at that approach and we're able to minimize that risk, what we're actually doing is allowing people that peace of mind that it really doesn't make a difference what's going on in that market, that volatility. They know that they are protected.
Yes.
They've got a portion of their money that's not going to have that effect out there. And so, folks, if you're at home here and the volatility of the market is keeping you up at night, if you're stressing, if you're not understanding what are the risks that you're taking inside of your retirement accounts, if you're worried, if you were like Bill and Karen and John and Danielle, and you're just saying, you know what, I worked too hard for this money and I don't want to lose it, I'm going to encourage you to pick up that phone. Give us a call. Let us walk with you through this retirement income analysis. We're going to take a look at any red flags we may have in the area of income generation, tax diversification, fees, income planning. And then we're also going to do a great plan of where we go over what are your goals, what are your dreams, and we take a look at how we can make that a reality, okay? Because here at ASC Financial Group, we want to make sure we're able to build a retirement that's built to last. Give us a call. We look forward to talking to you soon.
Wonderful, Josiah Taylor. Thank you so much, and thanks for watching. We'll see you next time here on Wealth After Work.